Good evening and welcome to Glambition, where tonight the topic we're discussing is how one's culture and one's upbringing impacts how you view beauty. Now for me, my first icon of beauty was most certainly my mother.
I'm just thinking when she was just born, I mean, we were children ourselves, you know, me and my husband. When she was born, his father asked, "Wat gaan van hierdie kindjie raak?" En my ene, kyk wat het van hierdie kindjie geraak. Joanne is a go-getter, you know, since baby time, you can say. Because if Joanne decides she wants to do something, I can do it. Stubborn. When she was a small girl, she used to walk around in her mommy's high heels because I also wore that. I can't do it anymore, you know, but I also wore those high heels. I think that comes from me. But she's a shoeaholic. I don't think that is from me, you know, but high heels, I used to, but I can't anymore. Getting old now, you know. There was also a funny stage in her life when the peppy jeans came in. Anyway, peppy jeans is like a wide jean. It's like a men's jean, and Joanne wanted this peppy jean, and she didn't look nice in it, but she wanted it. And the hat with the hair standing on it, yeah, that's not nice, but it made her happy. If she's happy and she thinks that that is the norm, then she must do it, you know. When we go out, I will always have my camera on me, and she will always pose for the camera. I took South Africa pictures. I thought I was good enough. I didn't even think of a photographer. Lo and behold, she became a South Africa through that photos. There was nothing ever that Joanne hid away from me because we're mom and daughter, but when she wants to tell me like a little secret, then it's Ingrid, I have something to tell you. That's why I know everything about Joanne. I made a promise to her that I will never use the Ingrid and Joanne talk with the mother and daughter talk. My mom told me to be yourself. Always, you must always be yourself, but be your best self, you know? Because many times when we youngsters want to be like that celebrity, you can be like that celebrity, but it isn't going to be me. You must just be yourself, but your best self.
Moms, they always know best. Now, joining me in studio now, Megan Coleman, a former Miss South Africa who also has a very close relationship with her mom. You actually have an image consulting business together. And also Karusha, the current Miss Mamelodi Sundowns. So let's start with you then, Megan. Working together with your mom, you must have also encountered quite an interesting working dynamic, especially as you deal with different women and their issues in terms of their beauty.
First of all, it's quite an interesting dynamic working with mom. We are very close, but also very similar. So that's quite an interesting dynamic. And of course, we get to see women from all different cultures every single day. It's so inspiring, actually, to see how different women interpret beauty, because it's not actually looking like the latest top model. It's actually just being about the best you that you can be. And the most beautiful that you can be. So it's so inspiring to actually have a job where we get to teach women to be the best.
Karusha, do you feel that you're African or Indian?
Most definitely African. 7 generations here, I don't speak my mother tongue. I would love to, but I don't, and not even, you know, a generation above me do. I think with many Indians in South Africa, I'm very rooted here, and I've been to India, and I wasn't received as an Indian. I was received as a South African, and I feel nothing but pride in that. This is where I find my heritage, here, and not so much there. And I think culturally, what I live every day is a combination of the two, and then that forms my heritage.
How did your mothers play a role in how you perceive beauty? Because I mean, you just saw now with my mother, very, very strong influence in my life. For you, I know your mom is a very strong character. How has her perception of beauty impacted you?
Well, I think I was actually very fortunate growing up because I think a lot of young girls, especially some of the clients that we see today, they say, I don't know how to do my makeup because I was never taught, you know? You don't learn it at school. I personally feel it should be a subject rather than home ec. And if you don't learn it through your mom or your sister, you're never going to learn it. So I was quite fortunate in the sense that my mom had actually studied image consulting when I was 1 year old. And she's probably one of the most experienced image consultants in the country. So I was so grateful to be able to learn from her. It actually stood me in such good stead leading up to Miss South Africa because I knew how to do my makeup, what colors to wear, what color my hair should be, what style it should be. And I think it was so wonderful going into a pageant like Miss South Africa, knowing all those foundations that not many young girls get to experience.
I grew up with a mom that always prided herself on how she looked. You know, she always had hair done, makeup done. She's very much a girl's girl. And I think even though I had that, I grew up very much actually a tomboy. But when it came time, she was there.
So for you, what is African beauty?
Well, you know, over the years of running my image consulting company, I've learned one thing, and that is that self-esteem and self-worth is not, you're not born with it. You don't get born with a healthy self-esteem. It's what's learnt over the years of your life and experiences that you have. And I've just found that when you are looking your best, not necessarily being the most beautiful girl in the country, but looking the best that you can look, you start to feel good about yourself, and ultimately you start to do good. And we've just seen so many success stories of women who have had a makeover, and next thing they've got a new job, they've had a promotion, they've got new relationships, and it's so true. It tends to infiltrate into every area of your life. So that, for me, what African beauty and beauty in general is actually about. It's about a complete package: spirit, soul, body, mind, everything working in harmony together.
What distinguishes us from the rest of the world is a sense of core, a sense of humbleness in every woman that I come across. It doesn't matter the race. There's a core, there's a sense of realness, especially here in South Africa. And I think that is what makes us so special in our beauty.
On that beautiful note, it's time for a commercial break. Ladies, thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you straight after this. Welcome back to Glambition, where we're discussing cultural and African beauty with someone who I think's got an opinion on everything. So I'm sure, Lisa, you've probably got a very good opinion on African women. Touch and go.
Touch and go. I've got opinions on a lot of things.
Now, in terms of African beauty, because definitely the women on this continent, we do look different. We've got a different spirit, a different grace about ourselves. Right. What is it about African women that make us distinctly different?
I think it's the pride, one. I think that they have a lot of pride, and this is the way they tend to carry themselves a lot of the time. And I think the general understanding of self, for me, I find is extremely sexy thing about African women. And then obviously the booty doesn't hurt. The booty is, hey.
ATM, hey? African trademark. They do talk about that.
Yeah, worldwide. I mean, people fly from all types of places to come witness this booty. Some of the booty was taken in the form of Sarah Batman, was taken to other, just display this booty. That booty is...
As South Africans, we often use humor to deal with more important issues, and that also makes it almost more acceptable. For example, there's so many race jokes.
Right.
You know that very, very well.
Right.
Do you think that that's how, as a society, we've gotten to terms with our cultural history and our heritage, and the fact that we do have a very colorful history?
Yeah, I think humor euphemizes a lot of situations. And I think that if you can make people laugh, you can make them think about a lot of things, as opposed to, if I wrote a poem, people would be like, wow, that poem was hectic. But if I made them laugh, I'd be, oh man, that's a very funny thing, but that's actually quite true, and that's a real issue. So I do really think that it's an instrument to communicate grievances, social ills, social issues, whatever the case may be. But me personally, I do it very indirectly, in the sense that I talk about what is a concern to me, right? And then in turn, whoever relates to that laughs at that. But I don't do it as a direct means of solving problems or communicating grievances. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's a very indirect thing to me, but because I don't live alone in this planet, and a lot of people can relate to my story, it then therefore becomes a social thing. But initially, it was a personal thing.
What's the most culturally insensitive thing you've heard said, but in a funny way, that it actually made a point come across?
Oh, man. I actually was watching something the other day, a show on Comedy Central called Tosh.0. And there was this guy trying to break a window. And he's a reporter, and he's reporting about how you need to break a window in a car. And it's an American show, and this guy's like, you get to the traffic lights, and someone's got a hammer and just bang the thing, and then he's doing it and he's screwing it up, and he does like 20 takes. And it's funny and whatever. And then he says, why didn't they just get the black reporter? I was like, oh man, that's so, it was such a, it's one of the few things. I also don't like the way that black women are being depicted on commercials, always screaming and shaking their booty. I'm like, oh, we are trying very hard to do that. You're like, yeah, but I don't know anyone who speaks like that, really, if you know what I mean. So it's like a strange thing for me. It's like, yeah, I love aerobic. It is great, yo. You know what I mean?
No, I do hear what you're saying.
You know what's funny is that the commercial after this is probably going to be like that.
Well, instead of going to a commercial break, we actually went to France, where an African woman, Rokhaya Diallo, has an award ceremony every year where she makes fun of the most racist and culturally insensitive things said in France.
Paris is not a big city. In fact, it's very tiny, so you can walk when it's not too cold, going from very, very different areas with different identities. That's the reason why I really choose in France to stay in Paris. There is no African beauty, there is beauty that you can find in Africa. And many people, for example, if you see Picasso, he has picked many African way of painting to make his most famous paintings. I think that what's interesting in the African continent is the variety of creations. So I think that Europe could learn from that multiplicity of identities, of cultures that, goes well together. I created an NGO 6 years ago. Its name is Les Indivisibles, the Indivisible. And we try to use irony and humor to fight racism. And the idea we had is to create an award ceremony that would reward the worst racist sentences. So racist sentences coming from politicians, from artists, from journalists. It has been working really good. It's a way to make people be conscious of the fact that when we hear TV, when we read the newspaper, we are really reading many racist statements coming from people who are supposed to be, our leaders. It's not very glamour to be funny here as a woman. We have this cliché that women are not funny. And most of women who are comedians, they try not to be too good looking because it can interfere in the way people see them. But I think that in a very activist perspective, being funny is attractive because it's a way to just make people listen to you. Because if you say racism is bad, nobody would hear you because everybody agrees and it's just boring. But if you try to make something very funny, it can work. I really feel like a kind of pressure because the fact is that I'm rather younger than the people I work with usually, and I'm black at the same time. So people are not really used here to see black people being involved in the intellectual sphere. I really have to fight to be taken as a serious person and really someone competent.
From a strong African woman in Paris to a very strong African woman here right on the couch. And Erna, George, you've conducted quite a bit of research into African beauty and what we perceive as beauty here in South Africa in particular.
We've conducted desk research. We looked back from apartheid days, all the various cultural influences on black beauty, and we spoke to women. We spoke to women in their homes. We went to beauty salons with them. We spoke to them in groups. We spoke to moms. We spoke to daughters to truly understand what is the aspects of black beauty or African beauty for our South African nation.
So how would you then define what beauty is on the continent, bearing in mind that you have looked at all these various influences?
The African beauty really is a portrayal of that combination of inner and outer beauty. And what we find women telling us is that there's the outer beauty, and that's the aspect that the Western expression shows loudly and proudly, you know, from kind of those kids doing those beauty pageants all the way through to Hollywood. In an African context, you then have the spirituality. That's my soul. It's my inner beauty that I show to people. From a celebrity perspective, it's the care that I show to the communities. And then what you also have is my mind, that which makes me successful, my wit, my intellect. And the expression of that in an African context is a really equal weighting across all three. So imagine a three-leaf clover. So your soul and spirit, your beauty outer expression, and your mind brought together, becoming the African expression of beauty. Whereas in the West, what you'd see is that there's an explosion of the outer expression. So while we live in the context of the West, what African women are really looking for is a balance of all three.
Ona, thank you so much for sharing your research and your insight on this topic. After the break, we speak to two top South African actresses on how their upbringing influenced their idea of beauty. Welcome back to Glambition, where we're now chatting to actress Zakia Patel and, of course, Rosie Motene, one of my favorite media personalities. Ladies, tell me, both of you growing up in very culturally diverse households. Rosie, you're a black Jew.
Yeah, I'm an Afro-Yiddish princess.
Take me through that, please.
My mother was a domestic worker for a white Jewish family. Growing up in the midst of apartheid, so that brought a whole lot of different cultural identities and identity crises and so forth. And I grew up with both sides of the family, and then 2 years ago I decided to embark on the journey and did the conversion properly.
Zakia, as an Indian, Muslim, coloured, Catholic, do you celebrate Christmas or Eid?
Both. Lucky me, both. Get to look forward to everything. Barafi, turkey, Easter eggs, soji. I've got the best of both worlds.
But isn't that fantastic? Because you actually then embrace what it is to be African, because I think we all are pretty much a mix. And Zakia, for you, very close relationship with your mom?
Very close relationship, definitely.
And did she impact the way you see beauty very, very profoundly or very strongly?
Definitely. I've always wanted to cut all my hair off, and my mom was like, don't cut your hair. And I think a lot of from the era and the time she grew up in, it wasn't great to have big curls and to have big lips and to have these features that clearly say I've got coloured blood running through me, where she would often straighten her hair and line her lip on the inside, where I'm like, look at my big lips, look at my big hair. There are huge differences.
Our perceptions of beauty are definitely influenced by our mothers. But what happens if your mother is a totally different race to you? We chatted to two Cape Townian moms and saw how they deal with having adopted children.
I think my mum did influence the way my understanding of beauty, and my mum is very different to me. She's much taller and she's got a bigger build and she's got dark hair and brown eyes, and so we were very different.
Well, my mum and I are very different. She is very groomed, you know, has always worn makeup and things like that, whereas I've always preferred a natural look.
Growing up, when my mum and dad took in our foster brothers and sisters, conversations with my foster sister came up because we were young, like, why is your hair different to mine? Or colour, but it was always something that we, in the end, celebrated.
You know, each person has their own rhythm in a sense of what works for them. I suppose my desire for her is that I give her confidence to be herself.
It was amazing just to realise that being comfortable in who you are is actually who you are and how you enjoy who you are. I think it was in my late 20s I realised what an amazing gift it was to have grown up in a cross-cultural family. But at that time it was really not something that white English-speaking families were doing. Adoption's always been something that my husband and I are really passionate about.
With both my kids, I want them to have as natural a hair as possible until they're old enough to make choices for themselves, if they want it differently. And then, of course, I will go with that if that's what they want. But I think the most important thing is that she appreciates her own hair for the beauty that it is.
I love her hair. It's like my hobby. So my black friends think I'm crazy because I just love doing her hair. And I'd spend hours and hours on YouTube looking at how you do dreadlocks and how do you start dreadlocks and how do you maintain dreadlocks. And we started off with the twisted ones with Jabu Stoner, which is a great way to have dreadlocks, but it's very oily. So with sandpits and children, it's not a good idea, and beaches, and I'd spend like hours crying, how do I get the sand out? And then we tried the salon thing, and it was very painful. The crochet type was sore, and I just thought I don't want to put her through that, and I don't want to put chemicals on, or I just want to keep it natural, but in a way that as a little girl she can put ponytails in, or just do stuff.
Her skin is very sensitive to any fragrance, so I would certainly never put any chemicals on her hair. It's beautiful and it's soft and gentle, and that's what I want her to appreciate. And I don't do anything with it because I want her to appreciate it for what it is, not to wish it to be different.
Yeah, we've had fun. So now I do the dreads myself, and it's interlocking, and it's a big, we get a movie, and we get chips, and it's sort of a big event, and we have fun. So I've learned a lot, and I know all the products out there. It's great.
Those must be the most gorgeous children. I mean, how cute were they? Rosie, for you as a child, how was it also growing up in a family where you were probably the only black child?
Yeah. Well, it was in the midst of apartheid, so there was a lot of attention on our family all the time. And so I had the best of both worlds. I mean, I came from a loving family, and my biological parents also loved me a lot. But then I had, especially getting into my teens, I faced a lot of different issues. Came to a point where my white friends didn't want to go out with me anymore because we weren't allowed into places. And then because I alienated the black people, but I didn't have any black friends, so then I became colored friends. Then I came in with a colored accent. My mother couldn't stand that, so it was a bit of a mess up. Suddenly came home talking like this.
No, but there's no problem with that. You must just embrace it. My husband loves my accent when I speak to him like that. He goes, no, baby, speak like you really speak. But it has, as a child, it was a sort of a confusing time for you then.
Very, very confusing. And there were many times that growing up thinking, well, why did God put me in this position? And I thought, you know what, whatever the reasons are, you can just get through it. And now I look back, and there are funny instances that used to happen, like asking my dad, why am I black and the rest of the family white? And he was like, well, because you were born at night. And I was like, cool, So it's like different things that you can look back and laugh at, but also at the same time it's also made me laugh at myself as a woman now.
But isn't it funny though, as women, we always want what we don't have.
Yeah.
If we've got straight hair, you want curly hair and vice versa. Why do you think we do that to ourselves?
The media pushes a certain look very, very hard, and that is unattainable in some ways, unhealthy in other ways. I mean, which little girl hasn't looked at some 6-foot gorgeous
It's heels,
women,
darling. It's heels. It's heels.
and being like, if only I was thinner or had bigger boobs or blonder hair, and it's tough because we need to celebrate our beauty.
Ladies, I think that's exactly the right note to end things off on. And just in summary again, as they said, it is important that we celebrate that which makes us uniquely African. So until next week, catch us again on Glambition.